Speaking with Carol Bland of the 92nd Armored Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron of the 12th Armored Division, taking the interview at the 69th Annual Reunion of the Division, July 25th, 2015, Omaha, Nebraska. First, Carol, I'd like to thank you for sitting down with us again.
That's quite all right.
And you were interviewed some years ago about the liberation of the concentration camps. And I'd like you to tell me your story.
Well, we were in Germany, of course, already, coming up pretty close to Landsberg. And we saw some real tall smokestacks up ahead. We had no idea what they were. We were trying to figure out why such tall smokestacks. And we had never even heard of a concentration camp. We didn't know there was such a thing. But as we got closer, we saw the double fence around it. We kind of figured it was some kind of a prison camp. And we broke the gate down with our tank. And when we entered, the first thing I remember seeing on the right-hand side was a pile of nude women, children, and men stacked up, I don't know, 4 or 5 foot high and quite a distance along the road. They were just thrown in there however they landed, some face down, some face up, some head first. And of course that was quite a shock to see that. And then on the left we saw some people coming toward us, prisoners in their blue and white striped uniforms. And they were skeletal looking. They didn't have hardly any muscle or flesh, it just skin stretched over their bones. Most of them were barefoot. It was cold weather. Some had shoes on, but they had paper stuffed in their shoes to keep them on, I guess. And I remember their eyes looked big as they stared out of their deep sockets in their face. And they had a look of vagueness, like they had no hope, no nothing. But they knew we were their liberators. One of my good buddies, Russell Stump, threw out some of his rations for him, and someone told him, no, don't do that. So he jumped off his tank to pick it up again. And I visited him a few years later, and he told me about this, and he still couldn't talk about it without tears coming in his eyes. When he went to pick that up, one of those prisoners came toward him and reached out with his skeletal hands and got a hold of his shirt and got up close to him and hugged him. And he never got over that. And I guess then we saw, of course, the smokestacks, and we realized that was the smokestacks for the crematoriums, where they had thrown thousands of the Jews into those ovens. I want to say this. During the 50th anniversary of the liberation of those camps, there was many in Europe and in the United States as well that said, and these were historians, some of them, that made the remark that, well, they weren't too sure that the Holocaust even happened, but if it did, it must have been highly exaggerated. And that made me angry when I heard that. And then I thought about it. And when I was there, in the middle of that camp, and I could smell the death and the odor of burning human flesh, and I could see all of this with my own eyes, I didn't want to believe it. I simply did not want to believe that human beings, any human beings, could be that cruel to other human beings. And so when I thought about that, I could forgive those that thought it didn't happen or it was exaggerated. But I want to say this, it happened. That was one of the most horrible things that I've ever seen in my life. And I can't remember if it was in that concentration camp. The 12th Army helped deliver at least 11. I was only involved in 2 of them. But I remember also seeing the gas chamber where they marched so many through. And then, I don't remember if it was in the first camp or the second one, just outside the far end of the camp was some railroad tracks. And on the tracks was 2 boxcars, kind of like cattle boxcars. They just had wooden slats. And inside those boxcars were also nude bodies piled clear to the top. And apparently they had tried to get all of those removed before we got there, but we came in too fast. We also looked around and we saw their sleeping quarters where they slept. Little bunks close together, 3 high. Hardly any room to get in and out. At one end of the building was where they all went to the bathroom. No bathroom there, nothing, just the back end of the building where they had gone for months to the bathroom. It was unbelievable. So, the Holocaust happened. And we say it must never happen again. But we've had similar things happening in Africa. And I want to say this. Maybe this is too political, I don't know. There were 6 million Jews died at the hands of Hitler's Holocaust. In this country today, there has been 55 million plus little innocent babies, boys and girls, killed through abortion. And I would like for some of these people that believe that is okay to see a stack of those little naked boys and girls laying along the road like I saw those Nazi victims, those Jewish prisoners of war. And I think if they could do that, they would change their mind. I think about what we did during the war quite a bit, and I gave quite a few talks to high schools about the war and especially about the Holocaust. But the students today are not getting information, history, of World War II at all. Some of those children believed that the United States started World War II. And I couldn't believe that. And they didn't know. They were hard to talk to because you talked over their head. If you took the time to explain to them what a tank is, they don't know what a tank is that we used during the war. And take the time to explain military terms. It takes your whole class period, and if you don't, they don't understand a thing you're saying. But I did give a talk one time to Truman State University in Kirksville, Missouri. The professor came out and interviewed me ahead of time because they're kind of particular who they let speak. And he was quite interested. I answered all his questions and volunteered information. And he said, "How long would you like to talk?" And I said, "Well, usually when I give a talk, 40 minutes is about it." And he said, "Well, how long would you like to talk?" And I said, "Well, if I could tell the students there everything that I really would like to, it'd probably take 2 hours." Well, I didn't know he would do this, but he made me an appointment at 11 o'clock. I went and talked to those students for an hour. And this was a lot different than talking to the high schools. They understood what you were talking about. At the end of the hour, we all went to lunch. I went to lunch with the college kids. And we came back, and I talked another hour. And I closed my talk, and I had told him something that I forgot to mention here, and he wanted me to tell him about that. And then they had a question period that lasted for about 45 minutes. I couldn't believe it. But that was the most rewarding talk that I ever gave. I really felt that I got through to them, and they really understood what I was talking about and were really, really interested. But now I am legally blind. My hearing is terrible. My voice just crackles, as you can see, a little bit. So I've given up. I don't give talks anymore to the schools. But I think it's good. I think most of us have recorded our stories. I did one for the National Archives, one of the best that I probably ever did. It was quite long. And I had a woman that interviewed me. That's all she did. And I think that's good that we did that, and that we do have some of this information available to those that would like to hear about it. Unless you have some questions, that's about all I would have to say now.
Thank you, sir.